Every night, at exactly midnight, I heard someone singing. There was no one living there, but the voice, it wasn't alone.
The night I finally went up, I found a child's drawing on the attic floor. It showed a woman and a boy, holding hands, standing under a tree. The woman's mouth was open, she was singing. The boy was smiling up at her with his whole face, and written at the bottom in the careful, uneven letters of a child who is still learning to make words behave. I will always hear you, Mama. The drawing was not old. The ink was not faded. It had been placed there recently, deliberately, by someone who wanted it to be found. And I had been living in that house for 6 weeks, alone. My name is Emeka. I am 31 years old. I teach secondary school English. I am not a man who believes in things he cannot explain. Or at least I was not. This is what happened to me between October and December of last year. I am telling you all of it, the parts I understand and the parts I do not. Because I have carried it alone long enough, and I genuinely think that some stories need a witness. Stay with me. I promise you, this is not what you think it is. It is something much more than that. My mommy said I can't reach 1,000 subscribers in 30 days. Please help me prove her wrong by clicking subscribe right now and tell me where in the world are you watching from. Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. I moved into the house on Alabi Street on the second Saturday of September. The area was the kind of quiet that only exists in parts of a city that the rest of the city has quietly agreed to forget. The street lights had been broken for years. The trees grew too close to the road, their roots cracking the asphalt into uneven ridges. The houses were old, not charmingly old, not historically interesting old, just old in the way of things that have been standing long enough to absorb everything that happened inside them. The house itself sat at the very end of the street, 2 stories, with paint that had given up its grip on the walls in long, peeling strips, a mango tree in the compound that no longer fruited, a gate that groaned when you opened it, like a man being woken from a deep and unwilling sleep. I loved it immediately. Not because it was beautiful, it was not beautiful, but it was mine. 3 bedrooms and a sitting room and a kitchen and an attic for less money than I was paying to share a bathroom with 7 strangers. After 2 years of thin walls and other people's arguments and eating midnight eba because there was no time to cook during the day, this house felt to me like breathing out. The landlord, Baba Rashid, was a small and quiet man who wore a white kaftan that seemed made for a larger version of himself. He showed me the ground floor, the kitchen, 2 of the 3 bedrooms. He was thorough. He was unhurried. Then he stopped at the foot of the stairs leading to the upper floor. There is a main bedroom upstairs, he said, guest room, and the attic. Can I see the attic? The pause that followed was not long, but it was shaped differently from the other pauses in our conversation. This one had something inside it. It has its own lock, he said. I'll give you the key. He reached the key out to me. I took it. And then, as I was turning toward the stairs, he said, Emeka. I turned back. His eyes were direct. Careful. The eyes of a man who has decided to say something true but has had to trim it down to fit inside a sentence. Don't go into the attic at midnight, he said. Please, not at midnight. I looked at him. Is there a structural problem? I asked. A roof issue? No. Animals? Nesting birds? No. Then, just please, he said, and something in his voice stopped me. Not fear. Not drama, a quiet, exhausted certainty. The voice of a man who has said this before and watched people not listen. I nodded. I told him I understood. I took the keys. I did not understand anything. For 3 weeks, the house was simply a house. I arranged my books. I marked papers at the kitchen table. I learned the personality of each tap, which ones had pressure and which ones performed the idea of pressure without delivering it. I sat on the back step some evenings with coffee and watched the mango tree in the low gold light and felt, for the first time in years, like a person who had arrived somewhere. I did not go into the attic. I had no reason to. I had space. I had quiet. I had, for the first time, a door I could close that belonged entirely to me. The attic stairs were at the far end of the upstairs, landing narrow, steep, turning at an awkward angle, halfway up. The door at the top was thick and dark with age. The wood around the lock stained a deep, permanent brown. Whatever was behind it had been there for a very long time. I left it alone. And then, on the night of October the 3rd, at exactly 12 minutes past midnight, I woke up, not to an alarm, not to a noise outside. I simply came awake completely and immediately, the way you do sometimes when something in the room has changed, without yet producing a sound. I lay still. I looked at the ceiling, and then I heard it. It was a woman's voice, low, steady, unhurried. She was singing a melody I had never heard in any church or any radio or any film, but which, the moment I heard it, felt like something I had always known, not recognized, known. The way you know the feeling of being held when you were too small to remember it, not as a memory, but as something deeper, as a shape the body has not forgotten. I sat up. My room was directly beneath the attic. The singing was above me, directly above. I sat in the dark and I counted my own breathing and I listened, and it did not stop, and it did not vary, and it had the weight and the warmth and the rhythm of a real human voice, not a recording, not a machine, not wind through a gap in old wood. I went through the explanations quickly, the way a rational man does. A neighbor's radio carrying through the walls, a window left open somewhere, an effect of acoustics in an old building. I got up. I went to the window. The street was dark and silent. The houses on either side showed no movement, no light, no sound. I went to the door of my room and stood on the landing, listening. The sound was coming from the attic stairs. I walked to them. I stopped at the bottom and looked up at the locked door. And the singing behind it continued exactly as before, patient, unhurried, as though it had no interest in what I thought of it. I stood at the bottom of those stairs for 3 full minutes. I did not go up. I remembered Baba Rashid's voice. Don't go in at midnight, please. I went back to my room. I left the lamp on. I lay in the yellow light and listened to the voice above me until, at exactly 1 in the morning, it stopped. I did not sleep again that night. I went up in the morning. In daylight, the attic door opened without drama. The room inside was small, with a low slanted ceiling that followed the roofline and a single window at the far end. Its glass so clouded with age, it turned the light into something soft and formless. The floor was bare concrete, dusty. The air was still, with that particular quality of rooms that have not been properly breathed in for a long time. 3 cardboard boxes were stacked against one wall, sealed with tape that had dried and split, An old wooden chair sat near the window, heavy, dark, brass fittings turned green with age, locked. A broken chair, a mat, rolled and tied with a piece of old cloth, leaning in a corner. And in the center of the floor, a single child's shoe, left foot. Small, a child of maybe 7 or 8. Pale canvas, the kind schools used to require, with a rubber sole and a Velcro strap. The Velcro was still fastened, as if whoever removed it had done so carefully, as if they had set it down with intention. I crouched and looked at it without touching it. I did not know why I did not touch it. I simply didn't. I opened one of the cardboard boxes. Old clothes folded with care. A woman's dress, deep blue with small white flowers. A headscarf. Underneath, a child's shirt, pale yellow, small, with a delicate embroidered collar. I closed the box. I stood in the middle of the attic and looked at the locked chest and the rolled mat and the single shoe, and I felt something I could not name. Not fear, something adjacent to fear, but quieter. Something that sits in the chest rather than running up the spine. I went downstairs. That evening, I called Baba Rashid. There are things in the attic, I said. Old things, clothes, a chest, a child's shoe, a silence. Leave them, he said. I'm not going to disturb them. I just wanted to understand. Emeka, his voice had changed. Quiet, waited. Did you hear something last night? The directness of it caught me off guard. Yes, I said. Another silence, longer than the first. I heard him breathe. I'll come to see you, he said. This weekend, I'll explain everything. Can you explain it now? No, he said, not on the phone. Baba Rashid, who is singing in my attic? The longest silence yet. And then, very quietly, someone who cannot stop. He ended the call. He did not come that weekend. A message on Saturday morning. Sorry, something came up. Next week, God willing. Next week became the week after. His messages grew shorter. His replies took longer. I stopped pushing, partly because I did not know what I would do with the answer, and partly because I was beginning to arrive at my own. Because the singing was teaching me things about itself, the way sustained attention always reveals structure. It began every night between 11:59 and 12:01. Not approximately, exactly. As though midnight were an appointment, it had kept so many times that it had stopped needing a clock. It lasted exactly 60 minutes. It never wavered from the same melody, but the emotion inside the melody that changed. Some nights it carried grief so acute it made the air in my room feel heavier. Some nights, something closer to longing, the specific ache of wanting a thing you know you cannot reach but cannot stop reaching for anyway. And occasionally, rarely, just once or twice in those weeks, something that might almost have been peace. A note held just a half beat longer than the others. A phrase that lifted instead of falling. I started a journal. Dates, times, observations. I wrote, it breathes at the natural places. The pauses are where a person pauses, not where a recording pauses. There is intention in how it phrases. This is not a sound. This is a voice. My colleague Tunde read the journal. He was not supposed to. I had left it on the staff room table while I went to supervise an exam. When I came back, he was sitting with it open in his hands, reading with the focused, slightly guilty expression of a man who has started something he cannot stop. He looked up. Emeka, he said, how long has this been going on? Put it down. How long? 4 weeks. He put the journal down. He looked at me the way doctors look at patients when they are deciding how much honesty is kind. Come and stay with us, he said. Bring your things. Stay in our guest room. You can commute. I'm fine. You have written 43 journal entries about a voice in your attic. You are not fine. I'm not afraid of it. Tunde. That's the thing. I keep waiting to be afraid, and I'm not. I paused. I need to understand it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, what does it sound like? I had tried to describe it before to myself in the journal late at night. And every time I had run up against the limits of language, the place where words gesture at a thing without being able to hold it. It sounds like someone who is looking for something. I said finally, someone who has been looking for a very long time and who has not given up, but who is, I stopped. Who is what? Tired, I said. Very, very tired. But who cannot stop? Who doesn't know how to stop? Tunde looked at me for a long time. Let me come, he said. Let me come to the house one night. I want to hear it. He came on a Thursday. We ate jollof rice at the kitchen table. We talked about school, the principal's new marking scheme, a student in Tunde's class who had shown an unexpected gift for quadratic equations, the persistent problem of the broken ceiling fan in the staff bathroom that had been broken for 8 months, and about which 17 memos had been written with no result. Ordinary things. But as midnight approached, the conversation became thinner. Tunde was listening even while he talked. His eyes moved toward the ceiling. At 11:58, he stopped mid-sentence. He had heard something. Not the singing yet. Something before the singing, a quality of silence that precedes it. I had learned to feel it too, in the weeks of sleeping beneath it. A gathering, the way a room feels just before rain, when the air changes and everything goes briefly, completely still. At midnight, the singing began. Tunde did not move. He sat at the kitchen table with his hands flat on the surface, looking up at the ceiling, and his face, I watched it change. The social ease that Tunde normally wore the way other men wear comfortable shoes simply left him. What was underneath was much more raw. We listened for 10 minutes. Then Tunde said, very quietly, "That is a real voice." "Yes, that is a woman's voice." "Yes." "And she is." He stopped. He tried again. "She is." "Looking for someone?" I said. "Yes." He looked at me. His eyes were wet. "How are you sleeping in this house?" he said. "I'm not, really." He nodded. He looked back at the ceiling. We sat there together in the kitchen for another 20 minutes, listening, and I was grateful, more grateful than I had expected to be, not to be alone in it. Then Tunde said, "I'm going up. Don't." Emeka, "Tunde, please. The landlord told me not to, not at midnight." "The landlord isn't here." "I know." But I paused. I think there is a reason. I think there are things we don't yet understand. And until we understand them, we should. We should what? Sit here and do nothing while a woman. He stopped himself. "While something sings in your attic every night?" "Yes," I said. "For now?" "Yes." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he sat back down. We stayed until 1 o'clock, when the singing stopped. In the silence after, Tunde said, "Find out who she is, Emeka. Whatever Baba Rashid knows, find out." Because that he gestured at the ceiling, that deserves to be known. I drove to Baba Rashid's house the following Saturday. He opened the door on the second knock. He looked at me. He did not look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting for this visit for a long time and had made a decision about how he would handle it when it came. "Come in," he said. "Let me make tea." We sat. The tea was sweet. Birds were making noise in the bougainvillea outside. A Saturday morning, ordinary, sunlit. And Baba Rashid told me about Adunola. She had moved into the house 11 years ago. She was a seamstress extraordinary, her work known across 3 neighborhoods for its detail and care. She had a son, Femi. He was 3 when they moved in. Her husband had gone. Not in a dramatic way, in the quiet, total way of water draining from a cracked bowl, one morning present, the next morning no note, no message, phone ringing and ringing into an answer that never came. She did not crumble. Baba Rashid was clear about that. She was not the kind of person who crumbles. She worked. She raised her son. She built a life inside those walls that was small but whole. The attic became their place, their evenings. She would put a mat up there and light a lamp, and Femi would sit on his small stool and she would sing to him the song she had learned from her own mother, who had learnt it from hers, reaching back through generations of women who had loved someone fiercely enough to make the love into music. The song meant, "I will find you, no matter where you go, no matter how far, no matter how long, I will find you." Femi was 9 when he got sick. It was fast, terrifyingly fast, a fever that would not break, a rush to the hospital. Doctors who spoke in the careful, gentle language used by people delivering news they wish they did not have. Femi died on a Tuesday morning in March. Baba Rashid was quiet for a moment. He looked at his tea. "She brought him home," he said. "She did not want a big burial, just quiet. So we buried him quietly." I waited. After that, she changed, not all at once. Slowly, she stopped seeing clients, mostly. She still sold because she had to eat, but the life went inward. He paused, looking for the word. She became a woman whose most important conversations were happening somewhere no one else could hear. "And at night?" I said. At night, she went to the attic every night. At midnight, that was always their time, and she sang the same song every night. For how long? Until she died, he said. 2 years of singing every midnight. And then one morning she did not wake up. Her heart, the doctors said. He looked at the window. I do not believe it was only her heart. The room was quiet, and after she died, I said, "The singing continued," he said simply. He told me about the tenants who came after. 7 of them. Most left within days. The pastor who left at 3 in the morning without his television. The woman who lasted a month and then moved to another city entirely and would not explain why. "Why didn't you tell me all of this before I moved in?" I asked. He looked at me, not defensively, because Adunola would have hated for the house to be empty. He said, "She loved that house. She made a life in it." And because he started again carefully, because I believe the right person would stay, someone who would not simply be afraid, he paused again. Who would what? Who would listen, he said. Really listen, the way Femi used to. I drove home slowly. I did not have music on. I did not want music. I wanted the quiet, and in the quiet, I turned over everything Baba Rashid had told me, feeling for the shape of it, the way you feel in the dark for a wall. A woman who sang to her son every midnight. A son who died. A woman who could not stop singing. A woman who then died too, still singing, still searching. I will find you. No matter how long it takes, I will find you. I parked outside the house and sat in the car for a long time. The mango tree moved in a small wind. The gate was half open at an angle, the way I always left it. The house looked back at me with its old, peeling face, and I felt something I had not expected to feel toward it: tenderness. I went inside. That night, I did not try to sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that went cold and my journal open to a blank page. I thought about what I was going to do, what I had decided somewhere on that drive home, without quite knowing when. At 11:30, I went upstairs. I stood on the landing outside the attic stairs. At 11:58, I felt the gathering, that specific held quality of silence I had learned to recognize. At midnight, the singing began, and I put my hand on the attic door handle, and I turned it, and I went up. The moonlight through the clouded window made the room silver and soft. The chest, the boxes, the broken chair, the rolled mat in the corner, and in the center of the floor, not just the shoe. Beside the shoe, placed flat on the concrete floor, was a piece of paper. I had not seen it in daylight. I was certain it had not been there. I crossed the room and crouched down and looked at it without picking it up. It was a child's drawing, a woman and a boy, holding hands, standing beneath a tree. The woman's mouth was open. She was singing. The boy was looking up at her with a smile that took up most of his small face, the kind of smile that only exists in children who have not yet learned that the world might not deserve it. At the bottom, in the slow, careful letters of a child who is still learning to make words obey: I will always hear you, Mama. My throat closed. I sat down on the floor. The singing moved around me, not from a corner, not from a point, but from the room itself. Present the way warmth is present, the way grief is present, in a house where someone has recently cried. And for the first time since I had moved into this house, I did not try to explain it. I did not reach for logic. I did not take notes. I sat with my back against the wall and my knees drawn up, and I listened the way Femi must have listened, with everything, holding nothing back. And it was, I need you to understand this, it was the most heartbreaking and the most beautiful thing I have ever heard in my life. Not beautiful like a performance, beautiful like the sound of rain after a very long dry season, when the earth opens and the smell of it rises, and something in you that you did not know was clenched finally lets go. The melody moved through the room and I let it move through me. I stopped being a rational man and I was simply a person in a room listening to a mother sing for her child. After a long time, 20 minutes, maybe more, I said, he heard you. My voice was quiet. The singing did not stop, but something in the room shifted. The air, the texture of it. Every night, I said. I think he heard every single night. I think he has always heard. And I think I stopped. I took a breath. I think he found you a long time ago. I think he has been with you every midnight, right here in this room. The singing continued. And then, slowly, so slowly, I was not sure at first it was happening, it changed. The melody did not alter. The voice did not alter. But the emotion inside it that changed. The grief that had run through every note of every night. I had lain beneath this floor and listened. It began very gradually, the way light changes at the end of a long day, to release, to soften, to become something other than searching. I sat on the floor of the attic with the child's drawing beside me and the single shoe and the locked chest, and the old boxes of carefully folded clothes. And I listened to Adunola's song move from grief into something I can only describe as arrival, as though the song had been traveling a very long distance for a very long time and had, at last, turned the corner and seen the destination. At 1 o'clock, it stopped. The silence that followed was unlike any silence I had ever sat inside. Not empty, full. The way a room is full after a long conversation that has said the last thing it needed to say, and everyone in it knows that no more words are necessary, and nobody moves yet because nobody wants to be the first to leave. I sat there for a long time. Then I picked up the drawing very carefully, and I placed it on top of the chest. Next to it, I set the child's shoe upright. I turned off nothing because there was no light to turn off, and I went downstairs. The singing did not come the next midnight, nor the one after. I lay awake on both nights, in the old habit of listening, and the house around me was quiet, in a way that a house can only be quiet when it has finished something it needed to finish. I called Baba Rashid. He came on a Sunday. I made breakfast, fried eggs, bread, tea. We sat in the sitting room and I told him everything. The drawing, what I had said, how the song had changed before it stopped. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. You went up, he said. Yes, at midnight. Yes, I told you not to. You told me not to because you were afraid it would hurt me. I said, but I think you were wrong about what it needed. He considered that. He looked at the ceiling. Then he said, the drawing. You said it was placed there deliberately. Yes. By whom? I looked at him. He looked at me. Neither of us answered. I have lived in the house on Alabi Street for 6 months. The attic is unlocked. I go up on Sunday mornings when the light through the old window turns the dust to slow gold, and the room feels less like a place that held grief and more like a place where grief was finally allowed to rest. I have put a mat up there now, a cushion, a small lamp for evenings. The drawing is on top of the chest. The child's shoe stands beside it. I have not moved them. I have not opened the chest. It is not mine to open. Some things are not completed for us. Some things are completed for other people, in other times, in ways we are only allowed to witness. I think about Adunola, about the kind of love that does not know how to stop, that keeps faith with a promise past the point where promises are normally expected to hold. I think about Femi, 9 years old, small enough to fit in a pale yellow shirt with an embroidered collar, who listened to his mother sing with his whole face. I think about the night the song changed, about what arrival sounds like when it has been a long time coming. I will tell you the last thing, the thing I have told almost no one. The night before Baba Rashid came for breakfast, I was in the kitchen very late, washing a cup, the tap running, the window above the sink dark, except for the compound outside, and the mango tree moving slightly in a small wind. And from somewhere above me, not the attic, not anywhere specific, just above. The way some sounds are simply present in a house without originating from a wall or a room. I heard a child's voice. 1 line, 3 words. Sung in a small, clear, completely unhurried voice. Not searching, not tired. Found you, Mama. And then nothing. I stood at the sink with the tap still running and the cup in my hands, and I did not move for a very long time. And then I smiled, because that is the true ending. Not haunting, not horror. found you. I have been thinking since that night about how many sounds we shut out, how much we miss because we are lying rigid in our beds, telling ourselves it is only the pipes, only the wind, only the ordinary explanations that rational people reach for when the world offers them something that does not fit inside a category. I almost missed it. I almost let 6 weeks of sleepless fear be the whole story. The man who heard a strange sound and endured it and eventually moved out and told people at parties about the haunted house as a mildly interesting anecdote. Instead, I went up. I sat down. I listened. And I was allowed to witness something I will carry for the rest of my life, not as a ghost story, but as a reminder that love, when it is deep enough, does not simply end, it changes form. It finds new shapes to move through. It keeps its promises in ways we don't always have the language for. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes it just needs someone to sit with it, not to fix it, not to explain it, just to be there, to witness it, to say, I hear you. I know you are here. You are not alone in this. That is all Adunola needed. That is all any of us need in the end. So, I want to ask you, and I mean this genuinely, not as a formula, but as a real question from one person to another. If you were lying in the dark and you heard that voice above your ceiling, would you have gone up? Or would you have been on the first bus out of Alabi Street, television left behind? Tell me in the comments. Because I think the answer you give says something true about you. And if this story stayed somewhere inside you, if it pressed on something you did not know needed pressing, send it to one person tonight. And don't forget to tell me where in the world you're watching from. Tell the one person you think needs to hear it. Because some stories are not told to frighten. Some are told to remind you that the people you love do not simply disappear. They just change where they sing from.